and welcome to another lesson from Soflex Math. Thanks for joining us. Today's lesson is adding mixed numbers. So we're going to use a lot of the things we did for just the adding fractions with uncommon denominators, and then we're just going to add in a couple of the wholes, which should be really simple. So let's take this first look at this one. That's 3 1/7 plus 2 1/4. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and come up with our denominator of 28. Okay, 4 times 7 and 1 times 7 is 7. So our new fraction for the 1/4 part is 7/28. And our new numerator is 1 times 4, or 4. And then we're just going to add that together. So 4 plus 7 is 11, and our denominator is 28. Now, we are not finished. This is how you'd solve 1/7 plus 1/4. But we can't forget we have a 3 and a 2. That's what makes it a mixed number, the whole numbers. So you just add that just like you've done since first grade. 3 plus 2 is 5. So just do not leave off the whole number. When you're adding mixed numbers, more than likely your answer is going to be a mixed number. So make sure that you have that 5 and 11/28. Also be aware that sometimes you'll have to simplify the fraction part of the mixed number. This one we don't. This one's already in simplest form, 11/28. But if they were both even numbers, for example, you would have to simplify it. But for this problem, 5 and 11/28 is our final answer. All right, so let's take a look at another problem. Okay, and this one we're going to try to solve two different ways. So our first way we're going to do is just like we did on that other page. So we're going to just try to find our common denominator. So we have 2.5 and 3 1/5. So our new denominator, our least common multiple of 2 of 5, is going to be 10. So we're going to go through and solve it just like we did on that first example. 5 times 2 is 10, 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 5 is 5. And then we're just going to go ahead and add those together. So we'll extend our equal sign here. 5 plus 2 is 7 over 10. Denominator stays the same. 2 plus 3 is 5, and that's already in simplest form as well. Okay, the other method that you can do to solve this, so let me choose a different color here. So let's do yellow. All right. So going back to our original problem, so I'm just going to rewrite it, 2.5 plus 3 1/5. Okay. So sometimes we can turn these into improper fractions and then solve, and then turn them back into a mixed number at the very end. So what does that look like? So let's turn a mixed number to improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So the improper value is 5 over 2. We're going to still be adding. All right, our denominator is still the same as 5, but 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16. All right, so now we have 5 halves plus 16 fifths. Okay, sometimes with the subtraction one, when we get to subtracting mixed numbers, this method sometimes is a little bit easier to see and visualize. But we're going to still find our denominators of 10 because we still have 5 and 2. So we're still going to do 2 times 5 equals 10, and then 5 times 5 equals 25. And then 5 times 2 is 10. 16 times 2 is 32. And then we're going to go ahead and add those together just like we did on the other side, and we're going to end up with 57 over 10. But remember, improper fractions are not simplest form, so we're going to have to turn that one, turn it back into a mixed number. So how many 10s can go into 57? Well, that answer would be 5, because 5 times 10, you can put your denominator down, remember. So 5 times 10 is 50, plus 7 more would get you to 57. So I'd like you to look here how this answer and this answer are the same, which is good. So you have two different methods. So you can do it the normal way, or you can turn them into improper fractions, add the improper fractions, and then turn them back into a mixed number as your final answer. Okay, so there's just a second method. So let's take a look at another couple scenarios or different problems. So for this one, we're going to do it the same way, but our final answer, we're going to actually have to simplify part of the mixed number answer, the fraction portion of it. So another thing to realize here, which is a good thing to pay attention to, is that we have an 8 and a 2. So if I counted by 2's, 2, 4, 6, 8, I get to 8. So I can just rewrite my 2/8 is going to be part of my common denominator, because I can just do times 4 and times 4. And notice here, so I have 8 and 8, I can just leave that second one the way I wanted it. So that saves you a little bit of work. All right, and then we're going to add those numerators. 4 plus 2 is 6 over 8. And then add our whole numbers. 2 plus 3 is 5. Now, as you can see here, it is a mixed number, which we always say mixed number is the simplest form, but this part of the mixed number is not the simplest form. So we can go ahead and use the greatest common factor of 6 and 8, which is 2, to divide both of those by 2. Okay, we can't forget about our whole number, so we're going to rewrite our 5. That's still part of the answer. But 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the ultimate simplest form answer is 5 and 3/4. So 2 1/2 plus 2, or 3 2/8 equals 5 and 3/4. All right, one last problem with mixed numbers we're going to do. What happens if you only have a whole number and no fraction? So we'll show you how to deal with that if a problem looks like that. Okay, so our final example, we have 7 1/8 plus 3. So it might look weird, but it's really, really easy, because guess what? Remember what we learned earlier on in our fraction overview? How do we represent 0? So we can just do like a 0 over 0, or pretend it's not there. So we can just leave it blank. So now all we'd have to do is do 7 plus 3 is 10, and 1/8 plus nothing is 1/8. So very, very simple problem, but if you don't see it, or we didn't go over it, you might see one on a test or something, and then you might get confused, and it's really easier than you think. So all you have to do is add the whole numbers together and just bring the fraction part down. So once again, a very simple problem, but if you haven't seen it before, it might throw you off a little bit. All right, so we have come to the end of this lesson. So please leave comments if you have questions, and I'll be happy to answer those, and we'll see you in our next lesson on Soflex Math. Thanks again.